Hello again. There is a seemingly inexhaustible appetite for fantasies in books, films, television series, and computer games which feature wizards, warriors, elves, dragons, and wolves. Into this category we can place, of course, The Lord of the Rings, and indeed most of Tolkien's work, together with Game of Thrones, Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and of course many traditional European fairy tales. A lot of Old English works, such as Gawain and the Green Knight, are in the same category, and also the stories of King Arthur and his knights, to say nothing of the world of Wagner's Ring Cycle too. That new films are about to be made set in Tolkien's Middle-earth, and a new series of the Game of Thrones prequel, House of the Dragon, is also coming up, both testify to the enduring attraction of such themes. All film and television series of this kind are set in more or less the same eerily familiar landscape, one in which we all feel quite at home despite never having visited. This is the world, the stage if you like, upon which wizards and witches, along with fairies, dragons and heroic warriors, act out their lives. We know this place not only from fairy tales which were read to us as children, but also from the various iterations which have cropped up in the modern world of fantasy. This setting might be described as the magical realm, and the strange thing is that we are all perfectly familiar with it and have in our heads a mental template against which we judge books and films like The Lord of the Rings. In other words, we don't look at such things individually, purely according to our whims, but rather measure the settings of worlds of fantasy against what, at the back of our minds, we regard as an objective standard. The more closely that the artistic work matches our image of this strange landscape, the more satisfying we are apt to find it. When we read fantasy fiction, or watch a television series or a film, or play a computer game, we subconsciously judge them against a common framework. The film version of The Lord of the Rings was so successful for this very reason, that it resembled closely the magical world with which most of us are already familiar. The television series Game of Thrones was set in a similar universe of wizards, dragons and warriors. Fiction of this kind strikes a chord in those of European heritage, and it sometimes seems that we are unthinkingly comparing narratives like these with some original of which we are only vaguely aware. This is, when you think about it, very strange. I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but folklore and myth have for many years been a particular interest of mine, and I've written extensively on the subject. In the 1980s, I used to write a lot of articles for Prediction magazine about fairies and dragons and so on. And I used to do a lot of similar stuff for The Lady, exploring the origins of unicorns and mermaids, that sort of thing. In recent years, I've taken the matter a lot more seriously. For example, I'm frantically trying to complete my latest book, which is due at the publishers at the end of June. This is a history of prehistoric London, and in it I explore some of the themes which I've lately been writing about. The question of where we acquired the archetype for the magical realm is a matter of great interest to me, and I've published a long essay on Substack about it. This explores why Lord of the Rings has been so popular, and why Game of Thrones struck such a chord with so many people. I'll give a link to this piece in the description to this video. It's free to read. I venture to suggest that it will be of great interest to any fans of Lord of the Rings, either the book or films, and will explain too the origin of some of the recurring ideas in European fiction, from Jane Eyre to The Sound of Music.